LLMs, probably a lot of our listeners have a good sense of how most LLMs were taking this idea of deep learning, so lots of layers of artificial neurons, which can learn complex, more and more abstract representations. A specific deep learning architecture is this idea of a transformer. And what makes the transformer so cool is that it can attend to relevant information over long stretches. So if you have a long document, now we're getting to a point where the way these things are implemented, we have at the time of recording the state of the art in terms of proprietary models. You can have I think it's Gemini 1.5 Pro. You can look over 2 million token context windows, so about 1.5 million words that you can look over with this transformer and attend to the most important parts of that conversation. It works even better over shorter stretches. And so large language models take that deep learning transformer architecture and scale it up to many layers, lots of attention heads, billions or maybe even trillions of parameters in some cases, training on data sets that have trillions of tokens. And so all of that scale makes these transformers very powerful inside of these large language models. And that's how we get through things like Gemini that I just mentioned, the chat GPT that a lot of people are familiar with, specifically something like GPT 4.0 in there. Or for me personally, Claude 3.5 Sonnet is my go-to. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm interrupting you, but you've hit on so many important points. So everything that you described, and I love the summary, you're really like sort of just picking up on all the steps, what it takes for us to have a large language model. You really start to see that it's a competitive advantage for the big companies who have access to the compute, who are able to build the large language models. But the majority of smaller startups and smaller companies are not going to be able to compete on that, right? So, that's a very interesting idea where, once again, the Web3 community has been talking about decentralization for a long time. To me, you're starting to hit the nail on the head because you're talking about, well, is it the language model that makes an agent, or is it the underlying almost prompt engineering that makes the agent? And we can have that debate. I don't have a definitive answer, but my instinct is I would like it to sit more on the prompt engineering side and less on the model side, because I think that's more democratized. I think there are more business opportunities for more people to participate than if we say the most important thing about the agent is the service provider for the large language model. And also, if you think about from a control perspective, is what control do we have? And we don't even have the best answers right now about what data was used to train many of these large language models. So from a user perspective, just sort of a rebalance of power might be if we are able to leverage the existing ones, which right now it seems like only the big companies are able to generate, then we can at least have some sort of market, some sort of thriving economy that includes more people if the agent becomes the place of differentiation. So, and there are papers on this, and you've probably seen them, where people are saying, that some of the large language models are starting to converge and starting to look similar. I don't know. The jury for me is out on that, or certainly I haven't seen enough evidence to that effect. But it does. I think the balance of power is kind of where I lean or where I jump in to say I would prefer. My instinct is that let's make the sweet sauce what the developers bring to the agent versus the large language models that we have very little influence over.
Yeah, I agree with you that the LLMs are converging on capabilities, and more things end up being thrown on. Somebody introduces a new modality, or with the Claude 3.5 Sonnet introducing the artifacts UI. So you get these things added on, but in terms of general, really broad strokes over long periods of time, in terms of the text in, text out capabilities, we're converging on similar capabilities across all of the big proprietary foundation model, frontier model LLMs that you have out there. Like I mentioned, Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT or GPT-4 as the kinds of big examples there. And so yes, so I'm starting to get a better sense here of where so with these large language models becoming more and more of a commodity, that also is driving down their margins. And so they're, despite the huge investment, hundreds of millions of dollars in the current frontier models being invested to create them, I think you're absolutely right that more of the value, more of the margin can be in the creation of the agent, where it's about the prompt engineering, it's about the scaffolding, like you described, that allows the agent to be able to be effective in the real world in a lot of different scenarios. So the LLM kind of becomes a commodity working in the background, and probably over time it matters less and less which LLM API you're calling. Does that sound like a fair assessment
That's
of where we are and
yeah,
where we're going here?
that's certainly intuitive to me. But if I had spent billions of dollars trying to get a model up and running over a very long time, I would be looking for ways to monetize that. And we see that the service providers now have stores. So maybe they're seeing the wind blow in that direction as well. What good is this big large language model if no one can use it, right? So there will be some shifts in power. And the thing that I like to say, generally is that the future of AI is not written. So there are many things still to change and evolve. And maybe if we can have some sort of influence or some piece in trying to decide on that direction, then agents is one place we can do that. And also thinking ahead is, well, okay, let's say we fast forward into a future with multi agent systems. What values do we want those multi agent systems to have? So if we say, all these models have objective functions in some way, shape, or form, like something they're trying to maximize or minimize or optimize. So if we have a multi-agent system that maximizes profits, right, for a developer, you're going to get very different behaviors among the agents and among the agent collectives than you would if one is maximizing collaboration, for example, or if user satisfaction or staking. So, really trying to think through those incentives that we provide for the models and for the collectives to make sure that they behave in responsible ways is going to be critical. And there are multiple people, as I said earlier, that are thinking about multi-agent systems and building them and marketplaces, etc. But we genuinely believe in a responsible AI and a future that has those agents working together in responsible ways. And that's not just, I'm not just saying that because it's a fashionable thing to say. If you look at all my work historically, the rest of the team at Theoriq, you will see there's been a thread about responsible AI throughout everything that we've done. And we think about these things, we care about them. So whichever service provider you use for your multi-agent system, really do think through what are the implications of some of the systems that they build into how the agents are going to interact.